Okay. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvrishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Right. Again, welcome everyone. Today is April 25th, and we continue on with our discussions on Mimamsa Shastram, right, Mahodaya? And yeah, over to you. Please take it away.
Namasarvebhya. Okay. Can you see it now? Slides?
Yes, Ji.
Yes. All right. So we touched upon the topic of Swadharma and had an introduction to Mimamsa and why Mimamsa and so on and so on and so forth. And here is an inductive entry into Mimamsa and how Swadharma fits into this thing. As we see, when the desire hesitates, whatever remains as mind to do, should it be done or not? For example, if you're a doctor and you're tired, but a patient is waiting. Let's say you're a judge and you dislike the very law. You started disliking it because things are not functioning well, or there are too many crimes, or the courts are corrupt, and so on and so forth. But you must rule fairly, right? But you dislike it. What do? A child does not feel like it, yet he has to carry on the funeral rites. And that happens, right? Very recently, too, I had that kind of experience. And let's say there is a teacher and feels so uninspired that day, but the students have come to the class, right? What should be done? Similarly, Arjuna, who did not want to fight, but the crisis of duty remained. Have you gone through this experience? And when you don't feel like acting that day in that circumstance, but there is an action waiting for you to do, what do? Are you going inward and then analyzing it? Or are you just doing it because it is to be done? Now, there are in Mimamsa, it recognizes the fact that we are not just simply our choices. We have responsibilities, obligations, and actions prescribed already in the society. And there are everyday rituals, obligations too. So there are role-based responsibilities. It is nothing but now Mimamsa correctly fits us into a realm with responsibilities that should be carried on. And in that case, if there is a conflict between desire and duty, how to decide? What is your call? What is duty then? Then Mimamsa comes and answers, Dharma is known through injunctions of the Veda. It's all in the realm of Vedas. So whatever remains, irrespective of my desires, that is mine to do because there is an injunction or a Vedic injunction. I may not have the desire to do. I may not have the motivation to carry on a ritual today. Right? For example, what should I do? Now, should I do irrespective of my desires? Or can I say, oh, it is not motivating me to do today, so I won't do it. I don't have the desire to do it. I don't do it. Things are not so convenient for me to do it, so I won't do it. Is this justification valid? And here, in the context of Mimamsa, Swadharma is not about what I want, it's about what is mine to do. It is not about self expression, as in modern terms. It's about self location within an order of duties, because that is aligned with Satya. And that is Dharma. That is the lens which Mimamsa takes. So, as you saw in the previous classes, Mimamsa is about how to interpret, rank, and apply duties, because Veda is full of mantras, shlokas, and basically in the form of sentences. So, how do you interpret the sentences? Because sentences are those vidhivakyas or injunctions, or nishedha vakyas, which negate what you should, or saying what you should not do. So, how do you rank them? And how do you apply? And how do you prioritize? So, this requires the help of language. So, the language analysis takes the center stage in Mimamsa interpretations, which is actually applicable in many spheres of life, whether it is Vishesha dharmas, even in the context of Swadharmas, ethics, laws, policies, education, and anything that you call public life. And as we saw, Chodana Lakshano Artho Dharma. Dharma is the purpose characterized by injunction, as Jaimini Mimamsa Sutra says. So last time we had a question. So what is that artha in that sutra? Chodana Lakshano Artho Dharma. So that artha here is the purpose, the not the actual meaning or the fourfold. We have this dharmartha kama moksha. So it is not that of purushartha, but actually the purpose. So it is used in the meaning of purpose. Dharma is that purpose characterized by injunction. And Swadharma was about my role and my duty, and of course the Vishesha Dharma in the context of it. It gives you certain obligations or responsibilities. Then the conflicts are always there. Moral complexity is about conflicting duties, and many times this complexity comes in the form of desires. Whether I want to do it or not, I don't want to do it. And you won't be able to recognize that thing because there's so many actions to do. And many times the very desire blinds you in a way that you might be doing, or you might be carrying on some action that is not duty. Some action is happening, but not all actions are duties, right? But if something is a duty, Mimamsa will help you in interpreting it and analyzing it. Yeah. So that with the discernment or with the viveka, you should be able to carry on the right action. So it's all about interpreting duty in a complex world as well. So Swadharma, we had talked about what is my duty. So it focuses on that. And insightfully, Mimamsa gives you, duty is situated many times. And what if the case is so special? Vishesha Dharma, in the realm of Vishesha Dharma, one would ask, right? But here, Mimamsa gives you a lot more insight into it, where it says that duty is context sensitive, not absolute. How do we decide when duties conflict? And that is when duty requires interpretation. So, the Indian discipline of interpreting duty when life itself is morally complex is the goal of Mimamsa. That is the discipline. All right. So we touched upon the topic of who are the thinkers, the major thinkers behind it, from Jaimini to Shavara. and Kumarila Bhatta's school of Mimamsa and Prabhakara school of Mimamsa. And it's all about, and their schools are different because their interpretation was slightly different. To recap, you know, Mimamsa had influence on other darshanas profoundly, whether it was Vedanta, Dharma Shastras, Nyaya, and other traditions. They all got a lot more refinement because of the debates with the Mimamsakas. So it is not an isolated school as such currently, but it's a foundational hermeneutic tradition or the interpretative tradition whose thinkers shaped Vedanta, Dharma Shastra, Nyaya, and much of the intellectual history of India. Now, we went over this flowchart multiple times. I don't want to repeat this the same thing again, but you do know that how it operates in the context of Vishesha Dharmas. So dharma is the most ethical, context-aware action suited to your role, your life stage, and nature, chosen from a state of clarity. For that clarity, you need the Mimamsa-like interpretation. And so we also had this slide last time, and we discussed a few points on, Mimamsa is all about recognizing the life dilemmas and going to when applying a disciplined interpretation so that the life conflicts are resolved. When the questions arise, which duty is mine in this situation, and a need of a method and recognizing what is the right or the disciplined way to interpret the injunctions of the Vedas. And of course, and these interpretations are actually, again, they're universal. They can be applied to other situations, not just to the Vedic text. And the science of understanding obligation is how do we know what ought to be done, and how do we read the text to discover it. And why it matters today is because better decisions come from better interpretations. Right? And we had some discussions on that. But getting more in depth, so Mimamsa had a lot of debates with Vedanta, and you know about Adi Shankara debating with Mandana Mishra. And the debate was like, Mimamsa was, see, the Mimamsakas would say the Veda centrally guides duty and injunction. Right? It's all primarily about action or ultimate reality. Is it karma or the jnana? And Vedantins were like the highest Vedic teaching reveals Brahman. Right? And so the core issue was karma or jnana. What is more important? The Mimamsakas saw life as an action. So action was very, very important for them, more than analyzing the inner life of the agent who carries on the action. It's not that it was unimportant. They placed action at the highest pedestal. So, see, for example, compare an injunction. It says, Swarga kamo yajeta. One who desires heaven should sacrifice, should perform this yaga with an Upanishadic revelation. That is, Tattvam Asi, you are that. So, is the scripture mainly commanding or revealing? And the Mimamsakas would argue that, well, it could be your knowledge, but is it resulting in an action when life is an action? So, what are you doing with your hands? What are you doing with your conduct? And how are you expressing Tattvamasi? So, I don't find that in the expression. So, this is a lot more. This is really, really important. What is important? The rituals. Yagadireva dharma. Right? And of course, with a lot of debates, there was jnana karma samuchaya. they came together, and it was contextually preferred. So that's the latest story. And the Mimamsa versus Nyaya debates. It was like, Mimamsakas were like, oh, Dharma is known through Vedic injunction. Nyaya was about valid knowledge must be defended through pramanas and reasoning only. So the core issue was about the authority, the proof, and the status of the Vedas. And here they did not discuss so much on the conflict between action versus knowledge. It was all about how we are going to use the pramanas, what is the authority, and the status of the Vedas. So, example was like, does the Veda need a divine author or a guarantor? Mimamsakas classically defend that Vedas as authorities. Nyaya often argues for divine reliability, right? So the subtle distinctions, but of course, they both schools got highly refined for centuries of debate. And of course, the most interesting one happens to be Mimamsaka versus Buddhism too. Uh, on the idea of Vedic ritual itself, should Vedic ritual and scriptural authority be accepted at all? So it was even more fundamental, right? And the Mimamsakas prescribed the action and the Vedic authority are the real sources of Dharma. So for them, Veda was the authority. That authorless Veda was the authority. The Buddhists went, well, they critiqued the question of ritual authority and the Vedic privilege. That is what you find in the text, and it was more into self realization and more Upanishadic cleaning. So, Mimamsakas defend the meaningfulness of the yagas, yajnas, and the unseen efficacy, what we call the purva, if you remember. And the Buddhist critique, they would ask why any ritual be trusted if its fruit is not directly personable or perceived, right? Is unseen ritual efficacy a valid reality? It's not even real. It's your aspiration. Why would it be centrally important? So that's why these are Mimamsakas are considered astika darshana, whereas the Buddhists are considered as Buddhism is considered as Nastika Darshana because they did not accept Veda as an authority, as a pramana. Not the Upanishads, but the Veda, right? And here is the internal debate of Kumarila and Prabhakara. That was about the Kumarila school developed uh, the influential interpretation of sentence, meaning, and obligations, whereas Prabhakara school offered another influential account of how injunction and meanings function together. The core issue was about language, not about anything else, because it was more internal, an interpretation of the language, how to use the language, and obligations, and the methods or the hermeneutics within the Mimamsa subject itself. So these interpretations also, you see this, the interpretation itself divided that into two major schools of Kumarila and Prabhakara. So when a Vedic, for example, when a Vedic sentence is heard, what exactly impels action? What they call is bhavana. It has to trigger an action. Only then they consider that to be of some importance. Tattvamasi, does it trigger an action? No. Aham Brahmasmi, does it trigger an action? No. So Mimamsakas would place a lot more importance on you do something. So if it is triggering an action, the Mimamsakas would consider that for interpretation and a lot more analysis because they have to do something in the context of dharma. So if it is in the verbal form or if it is in the total meaning, what's the total meaning and whether it is injunction or praise and what is understood by the hearer. So this is an example of the debate. So if the Nyaya asked, "How do you know what you know?" And the Vedanta asked, what is ultimately real? What is your ultimate reality?" And the Mimamsakas were always about what must be done now. So debates happened when these questions collided.
Gigi has a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Uh, so on that topic of Mimamsa versus Vedanta, how so the the slides basically are saying that for Vedanta, if you basically study the Vedas and understand it, you will get realization of Brahman, right?
Jnana. Yeah, when the realization happens, yes.
Right. Uh, So is it in Mimamsa that you do the actions, you still get the knowledge of the Brahman? Because where I'm having difficulty understanding is Svargavasa as how they're defining, is that the same as realization of the Brahman?
No. They don't even worry about that. Swarga kamo yajeta. Vedas talk about achieving swarga, heavens. You go to the heavens. Oh, they are not considering Tattvamasi, they are not considering the Aham Brahmasmi, because it is not invoking an action. It's invoking a realization, and Mimamsakas don't see, I mean, they understand it, but it's still jnana. It's not resulting in a karma. So that swarga kamo yajeta, that swarga is not the realization of the Brahma. And Vedantins disagreed. The interpretation of liberation by the Mimamsakas. Mimamsakas, you do this ritual and you get to heaven. And what the Veda said, so it said so, it asked me to do this, so therefore I do this. Yagadireva dharma. That is dharma because it takes me to heaven. That's it. Not the Upanishadic Upanishadic statements or the Mahavakyas. They were not considered Mahavakyas by the Mimamsakas, like the Vedantins did.
So what, according to them, would be Swarga? I mean, as defined in the Vedas? Because I always was under this thing that Swarga is meeting with the Brahman, but maybe it's just too much influence of the Vedanta schools. But
Right. Good, yeah, that's a good catch. Yes, that's the influence of the Vedantic schools, where, according to, I don't know how, if you attended the previous classes, we had that epistemology of Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhyatma. Right? Adhyatma realm is all about the Upanishads. Adhidaiva. In the Veda is about Adhidaiva. It is more deity-centric, more mind-centric, more belief-centric, and highly action-centric. Right? That is Adhidaiva. All those rituals and everything will have can be interpreted in that realm of epistemology. Adhidaiva. Mimamsa is in that area. But then that is going to the Swarga is the ultimate. That's their idea. Yes. But did they talk about Brahman and all such things? We don't find any such topics in Artha Sangraha, for that matter, which is the interpretative school or the Vyakhya, the Mimamsa school's Vyakhya on the Darshana of Jaimini Sutras.
thank you.
Yeah. You don't see, Tattamasi, or you don't see Jivo Brahmaivana Paraha, those kind of things in Mimamsa. Yeah. And the evidence is, if you go through the debate between Mandana Mishra and Adi Shankara, then it reveals why action was the most important thing versus knowledge. And even to this day, in this modern world, it's not just knowledge. Knowledge is recognized, but if it is not in the form of an action, it won't be considered useful, right? Okay. In a very, very Laukika context, right? So it's more, it's relevant to the Laukika world. You consider how Mimamsa interprets action. You see this thing here. The unseen link between action and the result in Mimamsa was called apurva. For example, not every consequence is immediate, right? Some actions do shape reality before they become visible. So now one of the principles of Mimamsa is Sargakamo Ejeta. And if you desire heaven, you should perform this yaga. Now, let's say Vishvajit yaga. This injunction commands an action now, but the promised result is not visible. So this gap is explained through apurva. So Vidhivakya says what ought to be done, and the karma is what act should be performed. And the apurva is all about the unseen potency. Right? And because you would see the phala somewhere else. And that phala is at the end. And do you know that? Do I know that? No. The function of the Vedas, the goal of the Vedas is to tell you what you don't know. And that is a lot more important, because as a human being, you don't know or have the resources and the ability to know the result now. And in fact, they say that almost all actions don't see the result now. Right? A crude example would be a modern analogy, right? A student is studying now, investing into education, and probably took a subject that might help him somewhere down the line of like 20, 30 years later. Now, let's say he learned Fourier transformation or contour calculus, whatever it is now, but it helps him 30 years later. Even in that, the effort is visible when the transformation to be ready for execution, it's taking time. And mostly it is unseen in the beginning, but will be partly seen later. So the result appears so much later, and many times, just before they die, or in the form of wealth, or the wealth that they leave to their children and things like that. So the Mimamsa goes like, you see that even the whole gap is unseen. So therefore, all actions do have results. All actions have karma phalas, but you don't see the connection. The act is performed now, and the result is not seen immediately. That doesn't negate the act. Therefore, discarding a ritual is equivalent to discarding, I have hunger now, and I discard the action of eating. So what happens? You don't know the consequence. So you cannot discard actions simply because you don't know the result now. And especially in the context of Vedas, apurva is the concept that they have come up with. So basically, the action of ritual is not pointless, even when the effect is unseen throughout your life. This is how they hold it. Right? So duty tells you what to do, and apurva is explaining why it still matters when nothing seems to happen. Some actions do change reality before they change the appearances. Right? Therefore, the unseen is not the unreal. So that's the distinction they make. The unseen is not the unreal. Therefore, the right action would matter before the result can be seen. So that's why rituals are so important for the Mimamsakas. This is how they debated with the Buddhists, mostly on this concept. So now, we talked about actions, we talked about choices and obligations and things like that. But what is dharma, right? And so the Mimamsa is a reminder for that modern life. Not every action is a choice. Even though in the modern world, the choices appear like actions, and it gives me a feeling that I'm doing something. And Mimamsa says, not every choice is a duty, because it begins by distinguishing what we merely do. Eating, meeting, breathing, running, walking, sitting, something we keep doing. And everybody is busy doing some action. And if you ask a Mimamsaka, is this an action? He says, no, it's not even dharma for them, right? What ought to be done is dharma. And the Gita principle goes like, Niyatam kuru karmatvam karmajyayo hyakarmanha sharira yatra pichatena prasiddhyed akarmanha. And here, Niyatam kuru karmatvam, perform the action that is enjoined, that is prescribed. It's the philosophy of prescribed actions, you see. It's not just philosophy of action, but the philosophy of prescribed action, what you ought to do. And action is better than inaction. Karma jayo hyakarmanaha. Akarmanaha jayaha karma. Action is better than inaction. Karma is better than akarma. Sharira yatrapi, even the maintenance of this body or life would not be possible. Na prasiddhet, not possible without action. Na prasidhyeda karmana. So Gita is pointing to niyata karma, or the prescribed rightful action, and not to every action. So therefore, action by itself is just neutral. Anything we do, you can consider that as an action, or a, karma, nitya karma, for example, and kamya karma. And the choice is what we voluntarily select. So that's a choice. That choice may be purely out of desire, but duty is dharma, and that is what ought to be done. You see how they placed it? So therefore, all duties are actions. Some choices are duties, but many actions and many choices are not duties at all. So it's a waste of work. For example, overthinking about what my inner mood should be to perform an action. Should I do a Sandhya Vandana today? And analyzing my inner mood. Mimamsaka has no place for it. Right? It may belong to yoga school or whatever. Right? I'll do only meditation, but not a ritualistic performance, or not a ritual today. Mimamsaka says no. Right? Preference is not principle there for a Mimamsaka. So there are many modern confusions in this, especially in this area. I chose something, so it must be valid. Because see, even Swadharma, people misunderstand, because I chose it, I liked it. Oh my, I'm so passionate about it, so it must be valid. I feel like it, so it must matter. And the preference is mistaken for duty. This is how Mimamsaka cuts it. So here, in the modern confusion, impulse gets moral authority. You see that? Because it's completely driven by desire. And the Mimamsaka's clarity is, I may choose many things, I know that. But in the context of what parents are paying, and what's the work that I have to do, and what is the study material that I'm on. So duty is all about what ought to be done now, and responsibility is higher than impulse. Basically, feelings of a fool. Conviction is for the courageous. So action is ordered by dharma. The choice may express the self, but duty is the one that disciplines it. See, I'm authentic. That's the claim, right? But here, authenticity is not enough. Obligation matters, responsibility matters. So Mimamsa asks not merely what do I want, but ought I what ought I to do. So not every preference prefers moral weight. Duty begins where mere choice ends. So it is not choice. Duty is what ought to be, and that is dharma or a mimamsaka.
Gee, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
On the previous slide,
Yeah. Oh,
the point of action versus inaction.
the
Inaction is also a decision, right?
Yeah.
It is inaction is still an action, right? Of not doing something.
yes, it's some action, but it's not prescribed action. You see,
Okay, got you.
niyata karma kuru. Tvam niyatam karma kuru. That's what it said, right? Prescribed action.
Gotcha. Dhanyawad.
Okay, so where are we? Yeah, we just
Sorry, just one more question.
sure.
On this concept of apurva,
Uh-huh.
would a common person studying or following mimamsas put an emphasis on studying why there is? I mean, what is the relationship between cause and action, or basically
Cause and
say
effect.
that? Yeah. So if there is a correlation, if there's a causation, how it would exactly link, or is it based on just you're saying it's based on pramana, right? There's an established relation. Somebody has studied it, somebody's experienced it, and this is the path. That's why we are taking that.
Yeah. And that is true. And I mean, Nyaya actually provided a better definition. Niyata sahacharyam. There has to be an established vyapti, the relationship between cause and effect. So they are a lot more, they are derived it and they have seen it through experiences and based it on the pramanas much better than the Mimamsakas, is my view. Even though Apurva is a great concept that they used, but it's more to do with defending the position of the yagas, to call it dharma. Right? And what they're saying is, look, every time you are performing an action, you don't see the result. You really don't know what kind of result you may get. But Veda says that if you do this yaga, you get this heaven. So therefore, you do this thing. And you don't need a Veda to tell you what you already know. You know it through your Lokanubhava. Veda's job is to tell you what you don't know, and they say that. So through Apurva, they justified it. Apurva, where the gap is more between seen action and the unseen result.
I mean, but wouldn't this be a medium for justifying a lot of things which, right? I mean, you can say, oh, this will result in world peace, so I'm going to go ahead.
That's why they say yagadireva dharma. They're very specific. Mimamsakas are not saying any action is dharma. What Veda prescribed is dharma.
Yeah. No, but then it boils down to what your interpretation or how you have heard. I mean, we see the division between the two schools in Mimamsa. It's like, what is the observer's understanding of how the words are interpreted from the Vedas, right? Then it opens a very wide chasm of what interpretations could be from one person to the other.
Yes, and we'll go through the rules of interpretation that they're talking about, and so that would tell you the context, because you're right, and the Apurva may be used by anyone else just to say, oh, you don't know the result and it can be justified. But the Apurva the concept is in the realm of Vedic injunctions. That is key. And if let's say you are doing a philanthropy for 1 million people, right? And that's if a Mimamsaka discovers that it's not what the Veda says, it's not dharma for him. Simple. Others may agree, may interpret. For him, and a strict Mimamsaka is going by the Vedic injunctions. So, yes, that was the point of debate too with others. Right? And it is controversial, yes, for us, but not for a Mimamsaka. And he's not a blind, blind follower. He has his pramana is Veda. Okay. And how to? So I like, and I my swabhava is something, and I discovered my swadharma is in the varna dharma of kshatriya, right? And but how does it operate in the realm of Mimamsa? How does Mimamsa help in choosing the Swadharma? See, here, that is very important, because anyone can call, okay, I became a Kshatriya, I became a soldier because I discovered in myself a lot of Rajoguna, and I'm a man of action. I love actions, and I'm very valorous and courageous, and I love administration. So therefore, I love ruling, actually, and having an influence over mass of people, and I want to be a leader. So I discovered myself, and that's my Swadharma. And somehow I became a soldier later, winning over kingdoms and things like that. Now, at this point, have you discovered Swadharma? And even Duryodhana had discovered that thing, and many others. See, here is where Mimamsa comes with the concepts of Vidhi and Nishedha. Your nature may suggest your role, but duty and prohibition, Vidhi and the Nishedha, they govern how you act within it. So the principle is, through your natural disposition or inclination, which is Swabhava, you discover your Swadharma, so your proper field of action, your sphere of action. And Vidhi says, Vidhi Vakyas of the Vedas, what ought to be done. And Nishedha is about what must be avoided. So that gives you a disciplined conduct. So therefore, the Swadharma is not mere preference. It is acting according to one's nature under the discipline of Vidhi and Nishedha. What should be done and what must be avoided. So the example here is on the left-hand side. So there is the role of protection for a Kshatriya, and he's defending the innocent, right? And the result is Swadharma aligned with Vidhi. The same field of action, he's also a soldier, but if he's acting with the wrong motive and wrong conduct, it is against the Nishedha Vakya. Right? Swadharma tells you what kind of life is yours, but Vidhi Nishedha tells you how to live it rightly. So that is when the Mimamsakas, Vidhi and the Nishedha, would help, because that's how the world operates. It has to be in the realm of what is legal to, what's illegal, what's moral, what is immoral. So therefore, Swadharma cannot be immoral or illegal. So that should be, many times what is legal may not be moral, right? Can that happen? What is legal in many places is immoral. And there are many examples, right? And so Swadharma is to be found like that, because it's not just a mere choice. I mean, you align your Swabhava with the Vidhi and Nishedha, that is when it becomes Dharma. Let's say an example, right? And I discovered myself to be, okay, I want to be always, sleeping, being at the beach, and, enjoying eating, mating, sleeping, reproducing, whatever, right? So that's all. Nothing more than that. So here, tamas is dominating. And if you in the realm of Mimamsa, tamas is not your swadharma. It is the fog that can cover it. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, it says, tamas tattva jnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramada alasya nidrabhi tan nibadhnati bharata. Know that tamas is born of ignorance. No, tamaha tu tamas tu ajnanajam vidhi. It is born of ajnana. Mohanam sarvadehinam. It's like it operates in the form of attachment, or that is what actually deludes all beings. Pramada alasya nidrabihi. It binds through delusion or heedlessness, laziness, and sleep. So if I have a tamas dominant state, can I claim that as my swadharma? That's my swabhava, because that is my swabhava. And can I claim that as my, hey, I'm born with tamas, therefore it should be my swadharma, right? And here is where it says, that is not your swadharma, because it's only a covering and not your calling. What to do? Performing small, real duties faithfully with shraddha. That gives result, which is because of the discipline, it thins the tamas and restores clarity. So Mimamsa is helping here to find your swadharma. Right? It is not built of an identity. Do not build an identity out of tamas, but keep doing what is yours to do. It's not just the desire or what you think you are. Yes, you have to discover, but in the light of self-knowledge. It's not simply the impulse. And keep doing what is yours to do, even in the smallest shraddha form, the faithful form. Let's say, as a student, I feel heavy and lazy, so maybe this is just by nature. People say that thing, right? This is who I am. And the result is now the tamas is obeyed. You're surrendering your identity to tamas. And that is not dharma. So it cannot be called swadharma. Yeah, the tamas is clouding me now. The recognition of the fact that tamas is clouding me. Now my duty as a student is still to study. Right? Now this small discipline grows clarity. So therefore, a discovery of tamas as your identity is not swadharma, because many times we said that in the past. Svabhava prabhavair gunaihi. We said, oh, the svabhava is made up of 3 gunas. So what if I discover my major quality is tamas? That should be my swadharma. No, it is not swadharma. It is the heaviness that covers swadharma. So do your real duty, even in small steps. What happens when rajas dominates? Right? Even that is not swadharma, because it's the fire that can color it. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi Trishna-sanga samudbhavam tan nibadhnati kaunteya karma sangena dehina. Know that rajas to be of the nature of passion, born of craving and attachment, craving or aversions, raga and dvesha. It binds the embodied being through attachment to action itself. So rajas dominant state, in that state, you see that fire, so that's a symbol. It's always like restlessness, ambition, craving. Even that is not swadharma, because it's only a coloring, not your true duty. What you must do is performing the real duties or the responsibilities, but purify the motive. So the result is discipline steadies, or the shraddha steadies rajas and reduces that attachment. So you can make an identity out of rajas too. Keep doing what is yours to do, but loosen the craving, the ego, and the feverishness for the result. So, how can one misinterpret Swadharma? I am driven and ambition. Good. So success justifies everything. So this is where things go wrong. The result matters more than the way I act. At that point, Swadharma breaks. It's not Swadharma. So here Rajas is obeyed. So you have surrendered your identity to Rajas, or the feeling, and not the conviction. My field may be the action of leadership. Recognize that your field may be the action of leadership. But as a leader, as a CEO, or whoever it is, right, I must act without being ruled by craving or aversion. Duty matters, that is, the responsibility matters. You have this concept of fiduciary duties when you're in an organization as a board member. So that duty matters more than vanity or ego or the fever for results. But you can't cut corners. So the result is the disciplined action and growing steadiness. So therefore, even Rajas is not Swadharma. Rajas cannot be claimed as how this is my Swabhava, therefore whatever I can do out of Rajas is Swadharma. Says no, because it is not in the order of duties. So basically it doesn't align with Satya or the Ritam. It's the fire that can energize Swadharma or distort it. Therefore, do what is prescribed to do, and do not let ambition become your master, because ambition is still an emotion. You see that point where not the choice, but the process is given a lot more importance here. Goals are important, but the process to achieve the goal is even more important, not cutting the corners. What happens when Sattva dominates? And again, here too, Sattva is not freedom itself. It is only the clarity or the balance that can support Swadharma. When the Sattva is, what do we call Sattva? When the Rajas and the Tamas are balanced, you are in the Sattvic mode. Tatra Sattam Nirmalatvat Prakasham Anamayam Sukha Sangena Badhati Jnana Sangena Cha Anagha. Says, know that Sattva is pure, it's luminous and serene, yet even Sattva binds through attachment to happiness. Sukha Sangena. Sangha is that attachment, right? That stickiness to Sukha or the pleasures. Even that state of wow, when I feel pleasant. So it will attach you there. Badnati Jnana Sangena Cha Anagha. And also it attaches you to the knowledge too. So knowledge in sense, not the self-knowledge, but the knowledge of the world, right? You might be very knowledgeable and very sattvic. And such a person can be deluded into thinking that he is self-realized, right? So clarity, calmness, and discernment, he already has it. Sattva dominant state. But that is still not the final goal, because it's a pure condition, but still a binding condition through attachment. So what to do again? So Mimamsa is all about what to do. Do your real duties with humility, steadiness, and service. So Sattva supports right action and deeper freedom when ego loosens. See, that's why the Mimamsakas here, even though there is this attachment to Swarga, but look at the importance of the actions. Yagadireva dharma. They are very focused on the dharma itself, not the phala of the dharma. Even here, it gives the framework to come out of the attachment to all these trigunas. So now that, let's say, a sattvic person thinks that I am calm and I'm very knowledgeable, so I must already be beyond struggle. So let me remain only in this pleasant clarity. Right? Here, this attachment to happen. Here, there is attachment to happiness and knowledge. The clarity is a gift. If you recognize that the clarity is only a gift, an anugraha, and not my ego, not my identity. Don't say, I am calm and knowledgeable. I have calmness and I have knowledge. But I am different from both the quality and the object on the possession. So this clarity is a gift. It's only an anugraha. So with that thing, you differentiate your identity from what you possess. What you have is not who you are. My duty is still to act, serve, and even sattva should not become an attachment. So this humble action will grow freedom. So it is, again, sattva is not to be confused as swadharma. It is a clarity that can illuminate swadharma. So using it for the right action and not clinging to purity, happiness, and knowledge. And that is where this focus on process of action matters. Yes, Mohde.
Gee, so I think from this slide makes sense that when you said I have calmness, I have knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So it's attached to the at the Atma level.
Yes. So yeah,
That's the point you're saying. Like it's
I'm only showing that the emphasis on the process, the emphasis on dharma itself, and how it is helping getting more and more clarity into Bhagavad Gita's teachings, because it provides the tools where the process, the prescribed action is so important, and it removes your ego out of it.
right. I think that's the. I think what you're saying is you keep it's an ego check, and you're
Yes.
always thinking that whatever characteristic that you're doing that role, trying to achieve the result, right? Well, result is not your goal, but if you do these techniques, if you follow these techniques, and if you do all this while having no ego or keeping your ego out, and you doing the dharmic actions,
Yeah.
the way it should be done, and keep the rajas also in check.
Yes. Keep them in check. Yes.
And the tamasic also in check.
And you
also you don't be blissful all the time, or you trying to not to.
It doesn't say don't be blissful. Don't be attached to the outcome of that, which is this pleasant state. I mean, you
don't be attached to the pleasantness.
Pleasantness. Yes. I am calm. I know you are not calm. You have calmness. That is also temporary. And see, for one nice example of Ramana Maharshi is this. So someone who considered himself a great bhakta came and met Ramana Maharshi, and then he said, "Oh, Maharshi, I have to share something with you. Every day, Krishna comes. He actually plays games with me. Yesterday, he was playing chess. The other day, he was playing." Another game, like a flute, or no, he was swimming with me. Yes. Another day he was swimming with me, and there was another day he was actually debating with me like a friend. Every day he comes. This is amazing. I don't know what to do. I'm already blissful. And Ramana Maharshi kept watching him, and he again said, "Does it happen to you?" Ramana Maharshi just doesn't answer, so he's still quiet. And then he goes on and on. At some level, this one who is saying that he's believing that Maharshi does not have any of these kind of experiences because it's more beautiful, more amazing. And Ramana Maharshi asks him, "So where is Krishna now?" Where is he now? He plays with you, you talk to him. Where is he now? Oh, he's not there with me now, but he'll come again whenever I call him. She says, what comes and goes is not real. The one witnessing coming and going is real. The truth is unchanging. You see, this is the point where he's attached to that thing. He considers that Rupa comes and goes, right? He's attached to that thing, and then thinks that his sattvic mode will probably considered himself a bhakta, and his name was Papaji. He became very famous as Papaji. Okay, Prahladji, I think, and he was called Papaji. And you might have seen this guy, Sam Harris, the atheist who writes about non-dualism and all, the pretty famous guy, Sam Harris. And Sam Harris was his student. Okay. So you know the difference between who am I versus what I have. He's always confused. Yes, Modin, the Senji.
Yes, I got too many thoughts. So this is, one point I heard. It's the truth is Trigonatit, right? It's not to be with any of this. So today was really helpful to understand the sattva, because I was getting confused with that, because sattva felt like it is it.
Yeah, feels like sattva. Sattva is a guna.
Yes,
Sattva is not realization.
it's so
It's only
but
guna. You have it. That's it. But not you.
tying the gunas back to dharma, right? So now if we have to focus back, so we're not to get caught up with this whole property stuff and these avarnas. But how would you? I don't know if there's a way for you to reconcile what you've been telling us. So then, if I know this, how do I point it back to dharma? So
in the context of Mimamsa, or in the context of dharma as a generic?
In context of dharma. So basically, once I recognize that whatever so I'm kind of a product of my kleshas and my gunas, right? So that's my dominant temperament and mindset. So then I have to use dharma, the Gita, to guide me, saying not to get caught up with my preferences. Now, so the arrow is towards dharma, which means swadharma. We want to still uncover our swadharma. So, or are you going to cover it? Because then, if you've talked about each of the gunas, then do we get? Sorry, maybe I'm jumping ahead.
Sure. Okay, the reason I'm talking about the gunas is because swadharma is many times get confused, because people see these gunas as dominant. They do know, right? These three gunas. Oh, I have this guna very dominant, so I discovered my swadharma, and as long as I am a kshatriya, here is one example, amazing example from Duta Vakyam. This is Duryodhana, and Krishna is walking in as an ambassador, as a diplomat, and he says, Janami dharmam, janami adharmam, yena kena devena, yena kena prakarena, yadi yena kena devena, yena kena devena, yena kena hridisthitena devena, yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. Janami dharmam, janami adharmam. I know what is dharma, Krishna. I know what is dharma. I know what is adharma. Okay, don't preach. You don't keep on preaching all these things. Yena kena devena. Whoever resides in me here. Yena kena devena. Hridisthitena devena. Whoever is in my heart. That deity. Right? Yatha niyuktosmi. However he is commanding me, that is how I do. Yena kena hridisthitena devena yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. He justified his wrongdoing, saying that Paramatma, guys, he's asking him to do what he's doing. So don't keep on, don't preach me all these things. Don't preach me about dharma. I know what is dharma and adharma. I am doing what is true to my heart. You see, he said that. So many times your wrongdoings in the feel, he's surrendering his dharma to his feeling of envy and saying, justifying that Paramatma wants him to be envious. Okay, and he doesn't want to. So don't preach him because he has learned all dharma and dharma. You see, he has learned all these mimams. He has learned. He has heard Vedas and he has done all of that. Yeah. Yes, Darshanji. It's one of the most beautiful verses written by Bhasa in Dutavakyam about Duryodhana. Darshanji, yes.
Yes. So, Mahoday, uh, in fact, this brings that realization that even, uh, I mean, Mimamsa is preaching action, but if you even take the whole of Gita, right? So, uh, after this is a lot of jnana, lot of jnana. It's like Sara of Veda. He gives all this to Arjuna, but then the main intention of giving all this jnana is, hey, you have to do your duty. You
Mm.
are probably here to listen to all this. I'm giving you a lot of jnana here, but the end goal over here is, hey, you need to get your bow and arrow and do your duty out here. So that's one thing. So the other thing, which is like, Adi Shankaracharya, now he had a lot of realization, and he could have just been sitting out there and doing all this preaching within his small area of
Mm.
uh, you know mm, place where he was from, but he decided, hey, I want to go around Bharata. I want to meet everyone, and so he did not stop there. That was action that he
Totally.
decided to take, and created these rachanas that we still sing and ponder over. Such a massive work of astakams that he did. So it's all action, right? It's all action that he sprang into. So yeah, the action is then
Yeah,
prominent, right? Through
Adi
these
Shankara,
examples.
Adi Shankara establishes that the karma that you are saying that don't be attached to jnana, don't be attached to this, but in the Mimamsakas are actually attached to the Vedic karmas. Okay, and no, is that it's not a bad thing or anything. What Adi Shankara establishes is that jnana is superior. Especially the realization of the jnana, self jnana is superior, and that is what that was the debate. So Vedantins had a great point there too. And it's not that they discarded the Mimamsa. Mimamsa is very much part of many Vedantic traditions today. Right? But the philosophy of Mimamsa was so high that it was, everything else was somewhat subordinate. So that was the position of the Mimamsakas. Yes, nobody left in action, but you see in the Vedantic traditions, when you take the sannyas, in some of the paramparas, you don't even perform the rituals. You are beyond those rituals, correct? Beyond the Vedic rituals. Some Swamijis don't have to do Sandhyavandanam and all such things, which is highly prescribed for a grihastha. Yes, D. Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, Adi Shankaracharya went beyond the ritualistic living, and then established that, hey, you could be going beyond all those things and doing things that will create a kind of example
Mhm.
for people uh, to follow dharma. Yeah.
So sattva domination we covered, and the next thing. So and the last class I think we touched upon this one. So there are 5 interpretive tools to see how to interpret the texts of the Vedas, because Mimamsa is not about guessing. They come up with a rule: the linga, vakya, prakarana, sthana, and samakhya, which is the indicative mark or the sign in the text, a clue in the text that points to the intended meaning or the ingitartha. The vakya, or the sentence unity, is the meaning that emerges when the words are read together as one connected sentence. Many times, you've seen this thing often happening: a copy paste of certain verses or certain quotes, and then trying to justify. Look at this leader. He said this. Take this line and then put it in totally out of context, and saying that this is what he did, right? But those kind of things, in order to avoid all of that, so the sentence unity, they came up with these kinds of very context-based interpretations, where the meaning that emerges when the words are read together as one connected sentence, now, that was considered the tool of the Vakya. And prakarana is about considering the context, the surrounding topic, and the discussion that frames the uncertain statement to come to a conclusion. And sthana, the position or the placement, where the location of the statement within the text or the sequence matter. And samakhya, where the title or the designation clarifies the meaning, because the name itself suggests the nature and the focus of the text. So there are examples that we discussed about, but what it means is, so how do these tools help us answer the questions of dharma, right? Which meaning is intended? It'll help there. Which statement governs the case? Picking the most authoritative teaching. And what is general? What is specific? They clarify the scope of the rule. And what does the surrounding context suggest? So now all this context and the surrounding can be better understood, especially in this AI area currently, right? Where the entity context, user context, session context, and all these contexts determine what is prioritized. And that will help you which rule of the text has stronger interpretive force. So that action was chosen as dharma. So because that will help us weigh and decide priority of the action. So the key point here is the linga, vakya, prakarana, sthana, and samakhya are Mimamsa's discipline tools of understanding the Vedic text clearly, to resolve ambiguity and determine which teaching should guide action. And so these are some of the details which you can actually read through. It's a lot to go. So how does Mimamsa help? Now, if you look at the decision tree, nobody has, everybody agrees with everybody, no problem. And when there is a disagreement, there's a problem. But within one's own role, there will be conflicts. And when there are two right things to do, there will be more conflicts. So what to choose and how to choose, especially when you're selecting a particular action from the Vedas. So they came up with the rules of general versus specific. If the question is one rule broad and another for a special case, so the Mimamsa moves like read the specific as qualifying the general. And the priority is specific should override the general. For example, generally truth telling is good. In a special context, it may qualify speech over truth telling. So, what does it even mean? Uh, Generally, truth telling is right, but in specific cases, you cannot surrender truth to the evil, right? Or surrender truth to anything else other than truth itself. And here is another example: injunction versus prohibition. Are we told to do an action X generally, but avoid it in a special case? And Mimamsa checks whether the prohibition is narrower or context bound, because the priority is a narrow prohibition can restrict a general injunction. A ritual act can be prescribed, but a special restriction applies in one case. So, in that case, they apply this rule basically to identify the kind of conflict and resolve it. And a primary versus secondary, universal versus role based. And that is more, we can relate to that thing. Probably a judge or a doctor or a teacher, they all face the same case differently, but because the same person, a doctor treats a patient always, right? But the patient may be a thief. Police chases the thief. He's not going to treat like a doctor. So therefore, the role with the same person changed. Universal versus role-based. And here the role-based dharma takes priority. Similarly, different contexts and sequential duties. If the context is separate, or sequence is different, or scope is different, there's no contradiction. Therefore, no conflicts. So that's easy. And if there is no workable reconciliation, what to do? If both cannot be done together, two actions cannot be done together, which is more binding? Meaning, in our modern case, what is legally binding? That will be done, right? The Mimamsa move here is in the realm of the Vedas, restrict one by qualification, exception, or indispensability. The priority is that the more delimited, specific, more specific, qualified, or indispensable, that rule prevails. For example, an urgent, indispensable duty can override a less immediate one. As an example, which is actually true here too, on your way to a formal obligation, you encounter an injured person. So, formal obligation. He's to marry at 10 a.m. in the morning. Okay, and he's coming, and someone fell and injured, and he saw it, and he was there in the vicinity. So Mimamsa's move is weigh the immediacy and indispensability. Can he call that person or arrange for some help because nobody else has a phone? Or maybe he has a car. He can drop the person at the hospital and then go to his wedding. Yes, that can be done because what is immediate, indispensable duty comes first. So therefore, context orders duty. It never was absolute. Mimamsa was never absolute too, which people may misinterpret. It was interpreted carefully. They distinguished the levels and to preserve the order in duty. So when rules are colliding, interpretation came before judgment. And that is how Mimamsa helped in the Vaidika dharma as well as every other layers of dharma in the concentric circles that we saw here. With that, let's see if there are any questions. Close it. Okay.
Mahoday, just actually, I have two questions. One is a lot of people say that these darshanas,
Mhm.
if you want to study those darshanas, it might take people take like 10 years, to study just one darshana and all that.
Mhm.
And that's so. Just wanted your comment on that. Like, why? Like, not why, in the sense, like when they study, is it the understanding the context and going through the whole set of books, or practicing
Yes,
it is what makes it such a long study?
at the end of the day, everything is an experience.
Okay.
And, and these experiences have been encoded as Shastras. And especially to study and understand what is not your experience takes a lot of time. If it's obvious to you and it's in your experience in within one lifetime, you know, probably yes. But these are all encoded. Many lifetimes of experiences are encoded here
Mhm.
in the book.
Like for a, yeah,
So
for a normal person, do all the
very
darshanas, do all the Vedas. It's not possible because everything takes time. Like, there are Trivedis and Dvivedis and stuff like that, which is like one Veda takes lifetime.
yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, that's why Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandana. Like for all the Upanishads are the cows, Gopalanandana, that is Sri Krishna. He milked them and gave the Sara in Bhagavad Gita. And even Bhagavad Gita, they have done a lot of work in that regard, right? It's all in
right,
this.
right. Yeah. So second question was actually related to that. A lot of people say that one should not even go to Vedas. I mean, unless you are gone through all these other things, one
Mm.
should not even, uh, and they restrict a lot of people.
That's a
I think,
Nisheda Vakya. And Mimamsaka would say, who are you an authority to say that? So how come you have this Nisheda Vakya, not to study that, not to study these things?
yeah, yeah. So uh,
People make it up.
some
Yeah.
people say you have to be initiated. Some people say you first do Gita, you first do Upanishads and all those other things, and then you should go to Vedas. Um, but yeah, I mean, these
Yeah,
are
the
all
thing is, Adhikari is what they're talking about. So, Adhikari Bheda. You should be qualified. If you are, see, even in the Mimamsa for that matter, you don't, let's say this person comes and says, oh, I am not in the mood to perform the final rites of my mother who passed away. Right? It's
mm,
so sad. I'm so feeling very bad. I don't want to do it. So, what does a Mimamsaka say? Guess? What does he say? Now that you know,
Mimamsa will ask you to do your duty. Yeah, no matter what. Yeah,
no.
right,
You cannot surrender your actions to your feeling of the moment.
right.
Yeah, yeah. But what would the modern psychologist what would he say? What-
Yeah, so all other things, I think Mimamsa makes more sense because it's action oriented and it does not confuse you. Otherwise, you will get into those debates and jnana. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking any action, it's useless. Life is all about action. So
yeah,
it makes more sense.
it's all about action. They don't. I mean, again, Vedantins have won this debate. Okay, fair and square. They have won this debate. At the same time, we have to consider the position of the Mimamsakas as well, because it's also a darshana. And nobody said it's Mimamsakas are wrong. It was all about prioritizing self knowledge a lot more. It's not about whether Mimamsakas were wrong and what they said was wrong and all that. No. But yeah, it's all about contextualizing even the darshana that matter to the Vedantins. There are a lot of things. And uh, condemning other schools of thought was not the point of the Vedantins. It gives space for everything.
Right. Thanks, Moday. Dhanyawada.
Um, the I think we are close to the end of the class today, and very engaging discussion on Mimamsa. And as Rudra Sen Mahoday just mentioned, that we create a feedback loop between knowledge and action. So let us conclude with the Shanti mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
DC Mahoday, you can switch off the recording.
Yes.